Hi there, my name is Kay Moon, and I'm a Western astrologer and Twin Flame channel. And this is a video with 2026 channeled messages into 2027 for Twin Flames, Divine Counterparts, and the Soulmate Collective. First channeled message in a couple of years, which I'm very excited about. The last set of channeled messages would have been published, I believe, in 2023, perhaps 2024, because the last union window provided such strong direction for the next steps in accessing union, being about coming into union with self, since that union window anchored through the sign of Aries. And this next union window opens through the sign of Libra, which is about union with a partner. Since we have crossed into the passageway leading to that period of time, they have outfitted me with new channeled messages for the collective. They've always provided them, but they just asked that I hold them until we got to this point. And so we've had the pleasure of being in session together. You would have heard some of the channeled messages privately in the last couple of years if they pertain to your connection. And now this is my first opportunity to share new ones for the collective for the year of 2026, headed into early 2027. Also, the guidance for me in my business was support people to stand in their own understanding, withdraw providing relationship readings, twin flame readings for the time being. Only offer them during specialized passageways that are focused on connection with another. Now that we have entered into the longer term passageway that is focused on connection for relationship synastry readings is now going to be open again. Whenever I do open the reading calendar, you will find both personal readings as well as relationship readings available instead of just the personal readings, now that we are complete with the Aries passageway and we are stepping into the Libra passageway. Okay. So, with that being said, let me dive into these channeled messages. Let us begin. The first thing that they wanted to share uh, was that there will be the messages that they provided are happening in a very specific context. And so the visual they gave me was a sphere within a sphere within a sphere. And so this inner circle here, they showed me is representative of personal energetic changes within connection. These are the things that you'll be able to point to in your connection with another person and be able to say, in the third dimension, this, that, and the third thing are happening. Then there was the sphere external to that, and this is a collective experience that they are referring to as the war on love. This sort of collective psychological zeitgeist that it's better to be alone than be partnered, this lone wolf syndrome among male identified people on the planet, this boyfriends are embarrassing syndrome among female identified people on the planet, this, block and delete, walk away, protect your peace. Oh, they're such a simp. I don't want to be perceived as too eager, too early. I should wait 3 days before reaching out. This sort of collective, the word they keep using is propaganda, but I feel like that's a little strong. But they're saying that there's collective messaging that has unfolded that has intended, it's actually by design to support and facilitate individualized journeys going forward and not partnered or paired journeys. That being said, They have, like I said, referred to this as a war on love when it comes to seeking self more than seeking communion and connection. And that is part of what is influencing individual experiences that are unfolding as we move through 2026 and beyond. Outside of that, they said, but what is dominating? What is they said that's happening, but you need to understand that that's happening inside of a context that is this third circle, which is the ascension process in consciousness for the collective. And this process includes being able to hold greater frequency of light and greater frequency of love in individual bodies, which will allow for greater personal sovereignty, not only in the individual, but also in the connection. And they said that this was very important to understand that what your eyes are seeing and what your ears are hearing concerning the pop culture, pop psychology, zeitgeist around unplugging from connection is actually antithetical to what the ascension process is supporting, which is deeper connection for us with the planet, for us with each other, deeper understanding, love, and awareness and empathy for people who don't look like us, don't live like us, don't believe what we believe. This deeper level of coming together and communion across humanity. And that is the dominant energy that all of these energies are unfolding within. They also shared, by way of context, that um, we have crossed over into the era where not only does love win, but that love has already won. If I were to split this screen by drawing directly in half and then take it 1% over half, so to the 51% mark, the screen might still look 50-50 to the eye. But that 1% toward love winning, that matters. There's momentum and that will continue to grow. It will be an experience that more of us will continue to be able to perceive as 51% turns to 60, as 60% turns to 70 and 80, and so forth. They confirmed for me that we have indeed tipped the scales, even though it doesn't look like that. I look of the old timelines of strife and people fighting against each other or separation consciousness. This is why they're so loud as they die off. How quickly we feel that love has won in our own life streams is going to vary based on what we need to wrap up and close out that was part of the old templates and timelines, and how quickly we're able to align with these new codes for unity consciousness, coherence, and a more balanced way of loving universally across the planet. Okay, so that being said, they provided several different sections of messages. I will notate them on the screen. I will also try to timestamp them below. So if you ever want to return to this and just check out a very specific message, you can do that. It'll be interesting to see as we move through this year what shows itself in your life stream and in mine. So let's get into it. The first thing that they shared is that there's a dissolution of the duality template, and that goes with the context that they shared for everything else. Number one. They said that in 2025, there was a total completion of all configurations of partnership that did not serve both counterparts equally. The capacity to live in duality as and still hold the connection, cohesive, coherent, have the connection feel alive while living in duality, that's done. So things like hot and cold, in and out, would have become unsustainable in the connection. And whereas before you might have felt heart, head, mind, body, spirit kind of holding together in the frequency of love, while duality was unfolding in the third dimension as an expression of the connection, that frequency of love will now experience rupture or disturbance for some, not all, as duality in the third dimension begin capacity to sustain and connect have also started to become unsustainable. Posting to homes to hold open to timelines would have become challenging. Um, Working two jobs or some other such mixed reality where you work together and in love with each other, but the design of the system doesn't allow for intimacy between coworkers. So your job says, hey, no fraternizing, but the two of you are like living a double life. Your coworkers at work, lovers behind closed doors. And what sustained it in 2025 that began to collapse. And you would have seen experiences like one or both of you finding new jobs so that you can move forward in connection, or the connection taking a pause so that the two of you can, with like honoring the construction of the roles at the job for now. Okay. Other patterns of duality would have also shown to create decoherence and connection. As that frequency of duality that underpinned the collective, not just the twin flame collective, but the entire collective of humanity. As we've progressed into this stage of ascension, the capacity for duality to stand has fallen. And so we are seeing more and more and more people move out of duality and into cohesion, unity consciousness. And as such, for twin flames, our unique little corner of the world, capacity to sustain duality also falls in our connections as well. Those in a minute so you can have better understanding of what you're seeing and why you may be seeing it as we move into 2026. On the whole, as a divine counterpart collective, because duality, what allowed duality to exist, fell in 2025. We released that in 2024 and 2025. Identities of runner and chaser also fell, collapsed, as many anchored the last parts of union with self. This would have closed out runner and chaser dynamics in connection. You would have come into clarity. There's something very different actually happening here than that. This brought into the self a release of seeking love outside of the self. You would have seen this, and my guides pointed to this for me. They said, the same way you see many people posting in your comment section, hey, I'm breaking up with the twin flame journey and I'm seeking love for myself. That was part of duality collapse here. As such as well, the trauma templates and the field in the heart grid for twin flames that held trauma in place and kind of re-wounding self, re-injuring self through the connection that also fell, and connections that had trauma bond baked into it would have come into either complete cocooning is the word that they're using, and we'll talk about that in a moment, for both parties to complete those loops without continuing to re-injure each other, or whatever process you were working in terms of your own growth, development, and healing and coming into presence would have also taken place so that the connection can live in the third dimension significantly more sustainably without pinging trauma back and forth between the two counterparts. Okay. The construct called twin flame is dissolving. I think I mentioned that. Nope, I didn't. Okay. So the construct called twin flame is also dissolving as well. And what they showed me with that is they showed me almost like putting lace on a cake, or like they showed me here, like the lace lifting off of the connection, if I could describe it that way. The same way lace has very specific grooves and patterns and pathways that the thread can move. What they showed me, if you were to run your fingers along it, what they showed me was that those grooves and pathways had connections contained in the way that they could express. Now that we have moved into a completely new season for divine counterparts, you showed me lace lifting off of the connections, facilitating greater freedom of movement and expression for the way connections show up in the third dimension. Okay. Um, and especially because the idea of twin flame came with this sort of checklist of things that you might say, oh, this is happening, that's happening, the third thing is happening. That must mean it's a twin flame thing. But conceptually, through collective agreement, what they were sharing is that that actually held a lot of the trauma bonding, the wounding, some of the more karmic nature, the shadow energies that twins were working so hard to transmute. Actually, the construct called twin flame actually held that in place. Now that the construct is dissolving, this is actually, and allowing people more freedom of expression for healthy expression of love. This is actually going to open the pathway for divine love to anchor here on the planet without all of the classical quote twin flame experiences, such as like running and chasing and being toxic and redundant cycles of healing that just never seem to end or land in union, constant trying to justify separation, or triangulation, these sorts of things. Because the construct of twin flame is being released off of the collective, this is now freeing the collective to express love and live love. This is the key part. Live love in the third dimension in much more organic and authentic ways. Okay. Let me just see. I where there is identification with this pattern, where people kind of plug into the twin flame template at this point and are still running that old program, those connections are actually going to very rapidly begin to collapse. They won't be able to sustain very long because the old template is now part of a false light template, they explained that the old construct of twin flame is because it's now dying out. People plugging into it, they won't have anything to sustain their connections going forward. And so that is actually going to be a very constructive thing for everyone in the collective on the whole. The old template won't be sustainable for either counterpart going forward. Connections will begin to collapse and running and chasing energy rather than staying cohesive and coherent as they have historically. Whereas you still felt the pull, that pull will be released into greater experiences of unconditional love and grace, with a lot more freedom in the experience of love and a lot less gripping, a lot less possession, a lot less ownership, a lot less, like the magnetics will not feel the same, is what they were describing. If one or both counterparts insist on looping in the old template. Okay, and that leads to the next message, which is this. They shared that there are 3 pathways solidifying, not opening, but solidifying, meaning the 3 pathways were already here for divine counterparts to move into. The first is, of course, union with your counterpart. And this is a chosen thing. Many have said, no, it's destined. I've never seen a universe as loving and benevolent as ours force our hand on anything, especially not on a planet that is so, the frequency of Earth is free will. It's manifestation. It's kind of an anything goes creatorship planet. It doesn't have a singular frequency like Venus or Mars or Uranus or Mercury. Our planet facilitates the amplification of anything. And so as a result, you can kind of see why we are where we are, people taking advantage of that. But I digress. Let me come back to the channel messages. Stay focused, K-Moon. As a result, meeting, yeah. Appointment scheduled, absolutely. Destined, of course. But in terms of will it go further than that, the stars did their part. They showed up for that. We get the opportunity to follow it through, you and your counterpart. And so what I have been shown is that if you're choosing union with counterpart is what you shall have. That is absolutely an option. Things coming together. And not only have you felt it, but you may have seen glimpses of that already in early 2026 or back in 2025. Union with another who is a counterpart, also a pathway that is solidified. I shared this channeled message like back in 2020, 2021. People got so mad when I shared it. Not everybody, but some people were like, that can't be right, K-Moon. And now they're seeing it play out where whoever you thought was the counterpart, for whatever reason, is no longer on the journey with you. You two, it could be any reason. I'm not going to go into all of the reasons now, but you know if this is your situation. If you have stood for love, remain love activated, and continued on the journey for yourself with your love activation, and you choose this type of energy for love match, for partnership on the planet, somebody else who's also a counterpart, whose counterpart is also not there, will step into frequency match with you. And you will still be able to experience the kind of love that is heaven on earth. If, again, if you decide that that's the path you want to be on. And then the last one is that those leaving the journey, there will be those leaving the journey altogether. Some of this has a lot to do with, they were explaining to me, and I shared this, if those of you who are back on the channel with me, like back in 2023, there were like a couple of like twin flame documentaries that came out at that time. And my guides had some very specific guidance about that. They were like, trust us, this is good. You want the implosion of the construct of twin flame to happen because there's too many people who got enamored by the idea. They saw the beacon that this community created, the lighthouse it created when it came to the experience of unconditional love. And they wanted that for themselves, which is fine. That's a wonderful aspiration to have. The challenge was in identifying with the construct, but not actually having a love activation, generated a lot of toxicity in the collective fields. It generated a lot of pain and suffering, trauma bonding. It generated a lot of um, like doing, like sticking around for, how do you guys want me to put this? Sticking around for pain and confusing pain with love, because that's not what this journey is. It's not what it's meant to be in any capacity. And so that in turn then generated a lot of communication and information in the zeitgeist about how painful and toxic twin flames are, which then in turn, follow this loop here, caused a lot of people to stop identifying who weren't meant to identify to begin with. And so they explained that because a lot of the people who weren't actually love activated have left the journey, this will cause a lot more quiet in the collective twin flame fields, which for those of you who are energetically sensitive to collective divine counterpart energy will feel like a huge relief as some of these people take the next step in their journey and move into their next connection and release sort of the collective idea. Okay. So again, nothing bad, nothing wrong with it. That moment with those documentaries and people kind of leaving the journey, it's done what it was supposed to do. It was right medicine for those. And it was also right medicine for the rest of the collective, they explained. But just to recap, the three solidifying pathways are union with counterpart, union with another who is a counterpart. My guide showed me this back in the day. It's like an unzipping, uh, where it's like two things that were zipped together get unzipped so that you can get rezipped. Somebody else. Some of you may remember that message. And then there are those, the third pathway are those that are leaving the journey altogether to take their next step in life and in love and in their ascension process. Okay. The next message that they shared is this. That they really wanted us to understand that whatever we've identified as the construct of separation up until the duality template fell is not what's about to be taking place now. That there is, for those who are still very much plugged into some of these new light codes for love and the new templates for unconditional love, there's a very big difference at this point between separation and cocooning. This does not mean that if you identify in some format of separation now, right? Like, let's just say you feel like you might be in the third group that I just mentioned because you and your counterpart aren't talking, you don't know how you feel or something like that. If you identify in some format of separation now, this doesn't mean you guys won't come together. In fact, some of what's happening is individualized cocooning for the purpose of shielding self from collective noise. As many unplug trauma and old masculine, old feminine templates that included all that running and chasing and trauma bonding and all that stuff from their individual connections this year. And so this is what they're saying, what they're showing is that as these things get unplugged from individual connections, both counterparts may go into a period of sequestering or cocoon as these things get unplugged for the purposes of being able to rebuild and plug you into the new templates. They liken this to the equivalent of having major surgery. The same way you wouldn't perform major surgery with, your partner in the room with the surgeons. The surgeons go into a completely sterile environment to do their work for you, is what this is akin to. And so understanding that, they're taking out an old system and now putting in a new system, having an environment that is free from obligation to somebody else, service to somebody else in the third dimension, having an environment that is completely liberated from needing to show up as best version of self because you're going through surgery. How can you show up for somebody else? You need an entire surgical team to show up for you, right? This is the way they likened anybody that happens to be in some format of separation coming into 2026. They're like, it's not separation at this point. There is something very different happening as people drop out of the duality templates, and we want you to consider this cocooning. They talked about connections coming into a place of being reset. A quiet that may look like separation, as it happens, is not actually separation at this time. And it's going to be important for you to hold your frequency for your connection, even if that means all you can do is hold unconditional love for yourself and total trust and faith that the universe wouldn't bring you this far to leave you, right? If that's all you can do, that's enough. Because separation is not what this is. And it's important that as you speak to in your language, in your own mind, what's happening, and it doesn't matter what you say to me or in the world, but in your own mind and heart, if you understand the distinction, that this is cocooning, that there is emergence on the other side of this, it's actually going to assist both of you filling up with the new energies on the planet. It's also going to set you up to be ready for that emergence when it comes and not caught off guard or missing some of the signals when it takes place. As the old templates taper out this year, there can be a sense of groundlessness, feeling unmoored, unclear, confused, directionless, a little bit like life interrupted. They spoke to this not as a pre-2025 experience into 2026. So if there was that prior to this, like 2023, 24, 2020, so forth, this is something different. They wanted to make that distinction in the timeline for you guys. They're saying that from 2025, late 2025 into 2027, and for some of you as late as 2028, this sense of groundlessness and confusion and being unmoored and unclear and directionless, like life got interrupted. This is old templates tapering out of your frequency and then out of your consciousness. rewiring your brain, rewiring your energetic fields and the way you run your energy, thus rewiring where you fit on the planet in the third dimension. The willpower internally and the means externally to sustain the last life you've had and any patterns that go with it are also dissolving as we move through this. So, as that happens, you may find life, because it emanates from us, crumbles. Now, again, for some, this will feel like the connection is quote unquote over or ending in the third dimension. It's not. A chapter is closing where the running and chasing, the constant healing loops, never being healed enough, the old definitions of masculine and feminine, these are being released and unplugged from the connection so that we can anchor into grace, spaciousness, unconditional love, allowingness, freedom, and a love that doesn't hold possession, but instead comes from a place of alignment. Okay. The next message they provided was this: moving between now and 2030 in particular, we will be releasing the construct and the idea of healing for presence. When it comes to connection and love, this is the transcendence of healing as a model for earning union, earning connection, that you can't have connection until you've healed yourself, that they can't connect correctly with you until they've healed themselves. That paradigm is now collapsing. We all know, and my guides have talked about this. I've spoken to this in 2025, but they said, look, through 2030, this is going to continue to taper out. The reality is that there are plenty of people in marriages, wholesale unhealed, and they're figuring it out together anyway. You too can and will, many of you will, be working healing in tandem with presence in connection. And many of you will also release healing as a part-time or full-time job and start to step into purpose and begin to step into your aliveness, knowing that the more you are alive and an expression of your purpose, your spirit comes back to cohesion organically. That being said, it's not to say if you enjoy whatever your healing process or works are, if you practice Reiki or offer it, if you enjoy receiving Reiki, right? If you enjoy receiving other healing modalities or practice them, that service is still 100% viable, valuable, necessary, and needed on the planet. What's falling away is the idea that we need to have that in order to get to union. The two will now begin to coexist, and presence will now begin to become a bigger priority for more and more and more in the collective. Okay. That being said, this doesn't mean that memories of old hurts, wounds, or traumas will not come up. They will. In fact, they'll come up several times during key activation points over this year alone. And they gave me some of those activation dates, which I'll share at another time. The memories will not fade, but the emotional roller coaster connected with them will begin to neutralize. And you'll begin to see this, that you remember, but it doesn't feel the same. that it almost has a quality of light to it, a quality of grace to it, a quality of, oh yeah, that did happen to it. And thus, reactivity to those same memories of hurt or pain or trauma will also begin to give way to new behaviors, new ways of greeting old experiences with new heart, greater love, greater divine neutrality will begin to show itself. One of the things my guides dropped in for me as they were presenting this, they showed me a visual of like the human body, which exists inside the human spirit. They said, understand this. As long as your spirit has a body vehicle, the design of the system is wholeness, it's completeness. You get a cut, you heal, you get sick. The body has mechanisms to heal itself as long as it has the right inputs. There is never been a time, there is not now, nor will there ever be a time where your identity needs to be overtaken by your healing because you were never broken. You've always been whole. You will be whole, and you are whole now. And they explain the more you can see that when you look in the mirror and when you look at your counterpart, you hold them in the wholeness, you hold them in the light, you consider their wholeness and the parts of them that are already striving and thriving for wholeness. That's actually going to accelerate their process rather than constantly identifying them as their attachment wound, constantly identifying them by their childhood trauma or speaking about it or ruminating about it or needing to dive into it and identify with the pain over and over and over again. Focusing on pain begets more pain. Focusing on pleasure begets more pleasure. Focusing on purpose opens up more purpose. And so between now and 2030, the direction of growth is going to be more toward presence, purpose, pleasure, orienting to your wholeness instead of orienting to your brokenness. So again, if you are a healer, if you partake in healing, I do all the time. I love my sessions with all of my healers because it just reminds me of how whole I already am. It allows me to experience that part of myself again and again and again with greater amplitude, right? So continue, if that's your service in the world, keep going. Understand that it is no longer necessary to earn union. Union will already be accessible in this new timeline. So I hope I explained that in a way that clarified anything I may have said in the past about it, because my guides have been talking about it for a while. And it matters to me that if you work as a healer, I certainly do, of a fashion that you know, like your work is needed. And if you partake in healing, you're not broken. Partake in it because you enjoy the experience of returning, just like re-tapping into your wholeness frequencies and holding it for longer and longer and longer periods of time. Okay. The next section of channeled messages, I'm trying to put that as clear as I can, but if you've got questions, make sure you ask me below. The next section here is that there is a need to align to truth. Aligning self to untruth will actually create decoherence. And again, when I'm talking about coherence and decoherence, decoherence is that splitting of self, right? In order for me to be in a certain place, mind, heart, body, and spirit, one or two of them have to be offline in order for me to be present. That's decoherence. Coherence is heart, mind, body, spirit, all aligned. That's coherence. No parts of me turned off in order to stay connected. So, what they're saying here is that this is going to be a year of alignment and shedding what's not aligned so that it can be transformed or transmuted. The third dimensional repercussion for misalignment, those consequences are going to be louder than they've ever been, physically, financially, emotionally, mental health wise. The decoherence is going to be unignorable, especially because, again, we crossed into that 51%. This year marks the beginning of a period of time where if we step out of that alignment, life is going to very quickly say, hey, 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 unity consciousness is this way. Come back over here. Now, this started in 2025, but it's now coming into full recognition that we're in a period of significant honesty with self. We can no longer hold the connection as middle of the road. And I've been seeing this a lot in some of my sessions. Even some of my Star Club members have mentioned this sort of idea like, yeah, I used to identify as a runner, but I'm really ready to face the connection in certain ways or face what I have been avoiding. Where we or the counterpart has been middle of the road on anything in life, not just the connection, right? I want to do this work, but I don't want to give up that work. I want to go to school, but I don't want to have to do this part of school. I am in the middle of the road on family matters, on finances, etc. This is coming to close with a lot of truth and a lot of revelation, specifically in 2026. There's going to be heightened revelation of truth this year. Ultimately, this is a function of recognizing the collective energy we're in beyond just twin flames and divine counterparts. The collective energy no longer supports ambiguity, apathy, or gray areas. This energy calls for decisions. And where we hesitate, decoherence will be generated. Things won't stay seamlessly together anymore. The mental health, the financial health, the emotional health consequences will be too high. So we're all collectively moving toward alignment, some of us faster than others. Your pace is your pace. It's the pace your life stream will allow, and that's okay. The thing that they wanted me to make sure you knew about this is that we're all collectively heading in this direction toward more unity consciousness, the end of a duality age. And that's why these consequences may feel so loud for being misaligned. Like, okay, yeah, time, like, gotta step more into alignment. I know what's right for me. I know what's true for me. Okay. Now, this next message is going to be kind of long because they wanted me to give a bunch of examples. They spelled out a lot of examples here. So I'm going to take this step by step. And the message is this: there is a demand for balance that will lead to sovereignty. Imbalance will lead to decoherence. And this is kind of a continuation of what I just shared. Imbalance, and this is bringing it more to the connection level. Imbalance is going to cause decoherence and collapsing connections this year, full stop. Now, for some, you may experience that your life is already so deeply aligned with your higher self, with so much ease, so much purpose, that the magnetics of that was the word they specifically used, are causing problems with your connection because the connection with your counterpart not aligned to that frequency of total alignment that you've already landed in and already cultivated. Where balance is not available in the system between counterparts and in individual lives, imbalance will create a level of distortion that's going to cause disruption, strife, and forcing imbalance to self-resolve. Okay. While that may be difficult to experience, they did say this is going to be a good thing. If rupture happens because imbalance is there, that's actually a good thing. Tell them that's a sign. They said that that would be the sign that you are at the end of cycles that repeat themselves over and over and over again. The experience will be that of decoherence in the connection, meaning like your turn on maybe a little bit off, like you're there but going through the motions because like your heart shut off, but your mind and your body are still there. The heart may be totally on, but the mind completely checked out. Physically, you may find that it's difficult to connect in the third dimension, even though heart and mind are present. Decoherence will begin to happen where there's imbalance in connection. Okay. Now that could show up as an experience of that forces both of you into some level of cocooning to allow the old templates to drop out of your system. Again, that may appear on the surface like separation, but it won't be that. And for those already identifying in some format of union, there can be a temporary inability to get on the same page, lack of understanding about the path forward, for example, feeling unclear about where to go from here. How do we change the business? How do we reset up relationship with the co-parents of our children? Inability to agree on which choices are a priority. One of you thinks moving and relocating is the priority. The other one feels like, selling stocks or bonds or investing in the stock market is a priority. You may find that you butt heads on what the priorities are, or just feeling challenged in choosing a direction and going in that direction together. Okay. Again, that will be a signal of imbalance. That imbalance will cause decoherence. Decoherence may instigate a period of cocooning, and all that's happening underneath that, old templates of duality falling away, old templates of masculine and feminine dying out. Connections will no longer be able to sustain imbalance, such as over-functioning of one partner, where one partner does emotional labor or spiritual labor for the connection. This doesn't, and the other partner just kind of coasts. The connections won't, in this new timeline, that won't be able to stand. That won't be able to continue to function. And many of you have already seen that. I've spoken to a lot of people in particular who identify in divine feminine dominant energy, male or female, but if you're just running divine feminine dominant energies, I was shocked actually as I came into the end of 2025, how many divine feminine energies had been operating in over functioning in the relationship, holding both parties emotional labor and spiritual labor, and then ran into literal heart issues, like needed to go to the doctor to get their heart looked at because they had been doing the spiritual and emotional labor for two people in the connection. The capacity for that to continue has closed. The templates won't sustain that any longer. And so you may have already felt that, even if you don't have heart issues. You may have already felt if you have been over functioning in connection, all of a sudden you hit like a wall or a shutdown in your energetic field. And that was on purpose. It's because the duality templates have collapsed. The template hosting, running, and chasing have collapsed. The old template of divine feminine and divine masculine, where one person provides catalyst for growth and then the other person does all of the growing, that has collapsed. And so as a result, trying to continue to operate your connection from that place is going to create problems in your own energetic field. Okay, so what they said there is to do about that, first of all, is to trust if cocooning has happened, if a health issue has happened, which has really forced your hand to return your energy to yourself. That's a good thing. You're right where you're supposed to be. Second, of course, they always want me to say to you, please, if you need to see a doctor, do so, of course. And then lastly, they have encouraged trusting the process, and to choose your pathway. If you want union with that counterpart, you don't have to do anything. Just trust the unfoldment is already underway. Trust that they've got that counterpart in growth right now. Trust that, you've done enough, that you've done it perfectly. It's okay. If you want union with a different counterpart, trust that that will be what you get. But they're saying choose. And if you don't know, it is okay to not know. But for now, anchor what you do know, that love wouldn't bring you this far to leave you, that you are in a place of sovereignty in this. They're really encouraging self-trust in the process. So I wanted to make sure that I shared that piece of the message. You just see these notes here. They wanted to also reassure you that now both people will be doing the growing. The growing may be both of you working different emotional or spiritual lessons. The growing can happen at very different paces, but growth will now be happening and will show itself. You're going to see it in the third dimension on both sides of the connection. They encourage me to reveal to you or remind you that the nudging of the planets, the guides, the new ascension energies available on our planet, all of this is for both counterparts to find their way into balance in the connection, and that this is a setup for the next union window. In the next union window, whereas the access to union up until December of last year was through focusing on self, it's going to be sovereignty in partnership this year moving into the next union window. So read as you're sovereign, they are too. No codependency, no manipulation. Okay. Trying to hold on to that old cycle or operate in the old patterns, as I mentioned, will facilitate dramatic decoherence as a means to assist us in letting go of it so that we can step into the new balance points. That's what they had to say about it. Personally, me as K-Moon, I want to acknowledge that what I just shared can be very hard and emotionally turbulent for some, as it may feel like your only option is to quote unquote walk away because of the consequences of staying. They're just too high at this point. Trust that your movement will facilitate movement. It has to. You move to the new timeline. The whole connection does too, counterpart included. Trust is the emphasis that they gave me, and that I'm also going to impart to you. Trust your process. Okay. In that, this brings me to the next message they had to share. And that's this, that nervous system regulation will provide readiness. So, nervous system regulation has taken hold as a priority to anchor union landing in the third dimension, especially where there have been years of keeping the door open for love with no reciprocity or being met, no balance, years of running and chasing for those of you in separation, years of turbulence for those of you who identify in some format of union. Nervous system regulation will be the signal that you're ready to step onto the higher timeline. The wear on the nervous system may have shown in 2025 as a reproductive health challenge that needed to be dealt with. I spoke to you guys about this in the Twin Flame Lunar Updates last year. That was preparation for 2026 to be a restoration year. So that sacral chakra, creative energies can be at their full capacity to participate in new timelines in balanced ways and releasing duality. They reminded me here, they showed me a picture of the new timelines kind of cascading down the ascension column or the chakras, from, where the crown, the third eye, the throat. I see it, I speak it, I hold it in my heart, I take action on it in the solar plexus, all of that. They're also showing me that we birth it through the sacral chakra, that creative center. Okay. And so they shared that frequency held in that chakra center is getting ready to participate in the new timelines as of 2026. And so cleaning up of reproductive health issues was a major theme and focus of 2025 for some, with some intentionality. That will continue this year. Stay tuned for the Divine Feminine messages for more on that. The nervous system regulation work are going to generate both the creativity and also the receptivity. Those are the male and female energies in each of us needed to anchor the timeline for union through the sacral chakra's generative ability. Now, where there is still further reproductive health work to be done, it will be necessary to manage that while also doing work on the sacral chakra for release of old timelines and people associated with those timelines. Gentle detoxing and emotional purge as necessary is what is recommended to help as you're guided to release exes, lovers, and even just people who, like, old chapters, old seasons in your union, for those of you in union, right? Where there are chapters that you're ready to let go of pain, suffering, strife, healing loops, financial disempowerment, right? Where you're ready to let go of those old timelines together. Again, a release through the sacral chakra is what's suggested. Gentle purging, gentle detoxing can really help with that. You would have already received for yourself the sort of nudge, like, hey, maybe you should try a detox or a cleanse, this sort of thing. Some of you have already gotten that nudge. I've talked to some clients and some Star Club members who have. If that's the case, I'm just providing confirmation for you. If you've not gotten that nudge, this message may be for somebody else. Okay. For those who incarnated in a male body specifically, they had a specific message regarding the nervous system and being born cisgender male, uh, and specifically like male dominant, male identified energy. This is where you may find that your sacral chakra only opens and connects with your counterpart starting in 2026. Turn on happens, but it doesn't happen the way it happened before this year. It's a far more focused, far more sacred, far more exclusive experience. And so if you're only turned on by your counterpart, you may not even know that that's your counterpart. They wanted me to share with you this is not dysfunction that requires medical intervention. This will be a signal from your higher self as well as your spiritual biology that it is unplugging from the matrix of toxic masculinity. It is unplugging from the masculine concepts of you must spread your seed far and wide, that's just nature. It's unplugging from the concepts that say, you should be turned on by anything, anywhere, all the time, this sort of thing. And what's happening there is heart, mind, body, spirit coherence. It's all coming into personal alignment, and that includes sacral chakra activation coming into alignment in the physical body as well. This is your nervous system's communication through the sacral chakra about where fertile ground is, where expansion is for your next chapter, and specifically who that uh, next step is with. They wanted me to encourage you to know, your counterpart is not putting the juju on you. Counterpart is not, there's nothing nefarious here. Your body isn't failing you. Your body isn't betraying you. This is higher consciousness coming online for you and the new templates of masculinity coming online. It's a masculinity that is integrated, feminine, and masculine. Okay. So, and what will help with that once that's happening is, not to freak out, regulate your nervous system, trust your body is sending you signals about where your life is meant to be growing. Okay, the next message, this is a very short one, but an important one. The, the next message here is that 2026 is going to be a year of quick movement. As all of this unfolds, we will collectively experience sudden aha moments, sudden about faces, sudden changes, sudden unions, sudden happenings across the board, both in our individual lives, but also in connections. There will be surprise proposals in the first half of the year through July. I've already started to see some of those show up, people getting like, surprise married, elopements. Expect the unexpected in the middle of the year. And that's not just with regard to love, but with regard to everything. This is when the biggest catalytic energy for change shows itself. The end of 2026, so from July onward, will be reunion focused for those identifying in some format of separation. So quick movement in 2026. Okay, and this is the last message before going into summary. They wanted to speak to the construct of time and divine timing by speaking to the concept of like roles and functions and what people are doing. They were really insistent that I let you know that two things. Number one, um, unfoldments are going to unfold at the pace at which your life can handle moving to the higher timelines. That the goal isn't to create chaos or disruption or undermine you, but to move you as gently and quickly as possible to a timeline that hosts these new light codes for love, new light codes for relationship and connection that focus on presence and grace and allowingness and openness and freedom in connection. As such, they said there are different roles that people are going to be expressing, I guess you could say, for the collective. Living is the word they're using now. Different roles people will be living as they move into these new higher timelines. So, gave me some examples, but you may have another example of a role you want to leave in the comments. The first is that some are going to be supporting the world in moving into these higher timelines. That's those of you who are doing, politically active work, community work, going to the dance festivals across the country. Those of you who are really holding the gateway open for the world and your community at large to step into these more unity conscious, grounded timelines, you will be supporting the world, and you've already felt called to that. Some are going to be supporting individuals in transmuting and moving to individual higher timelines and really unplugging from those old templates one-on-one and plugging into the new templates one-on-one. That is something that they said specifically the healers are going to start to move into. So those of you who do energy work or body balancing work in some capacity, psychotherapeutic work, really helping people either anchor into new timelines energetically, these new light codes for love and connection. Alternatively, those of you who don't do it energetically, but are doing it mentally through the world of communication, coaching, therapy, group work, retreats, healers of that nature, you will also be working to help individuals change their mindset so that they can land in these new timelines. Others of you are going to be doing neither one of those things, but instead just holding a steady frequency of light and love. And as you come into individual interactions, family members, kids, your neighbors, the people at your job, you're going to be, by example, modeling how these new frequencies look as behaviors. What are the things people say? What are the things people do? How do people react when they truly are living from love and expressing from love? Everyone on the planet, as we move through this year, are becoming more empathic, they shared. And this really began in 2024 and 2023 as we saw events unfold. I won't go into them now, but just events. Um, different conflicts unfold, different people being harmed by different conflicts, recognizing the suffering that's happening on both sides. This is really facilitating an attunement for the collective to locking into a timeline where there is no conflict, locking into and lifting off of the timeline again of duality. That duality timeline is collapsing. The people that want to participate in it are getting smaller and smaller and fewer and fewer. In fact, the louder those people are that want to participate in conflict-riddled timelines, the greater the activation for empathy for all of the rest of the collective. And so this is actually a really good thing. My guides shared that we're all moving toward this collective consciousness of greater love, greater connection, greater unity consciousness, recognizing our interconnectedness, that what harms you is actually also harmful for me. That I can't let you suffer if I expect to live free of suffering. I need to actually protect you from suffering, and you protect me from suffering. We both rise together. Okay. And then let's see. They said that some people are specifically placed in locations where they are bringing in templates and designs for better systems. And they specifically are pointing to like star seeds, or those who have heavy star seed communication, like star family communication. They said that there are systems for government, systems for the environment, systems for education and children and family welfare that come from other dimensions, other places. And some of you are going to be having the ideas for those and be very entrenched in the sharing of those where you are as you usher people onto these new timelines. And what I'm being shown consistently with each of these different roles is like twin flames holding open the door so that members of the collective that they influence can walk through to a new timeline. And you don't even have to identify as twin flame. This may be light worker for some of you as well. And then they provided a very specific message as well for a very specific group. They said that there are some who incarnated for these years, like 2026, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, and 32. They said that there's specific groups of people that appear like they came in dark. And I'm not even talking about false light dark. I'm talking about evil, or like evil is probably too strong of a word. But what they're showing me is people who look toxic and problematic. Some of them came in that way specifically so that in these years, 2026 through 2032, they intentionally, by design, pre-planned, scheduled appointment, have an awakening. And because they are so deeply embedded and influential among a group of people who bought into the darkness, they turn an entire wave of humanity all at one time because they got the activation during this very critical phase of 6 years worth of activation time. And so my guides were saying this is why it's really important to release hate, release ideas or constructs or concepts that, one person is to blame for everything. to release the belief that, if we just get rid of that one person or, that one, political leader, everything would be better. Um, to also release these ideas and beliefs that that one group over there, they're the problem from that one country, they're evil. That's actually not quite how this is working. Because there are some of us who are over there with the intention to turn the other way at a very specific time and then bring a whole slew of people over to unity consciousness with them. So, to just act from a place of love, perceive from the highest place of love that you can find, um, speak from that love with the people around you as much as possible. I know that can be hard. Um, and yeah, though when they wanted to speak to timing specifically because they were really insistent that listen, if you chose union, union's happening. The end. They also wanted us to really pry our fingers back as a collective from the idea of when and recognize that there's something much bigger going on here than our personal fulfillment. Although that's absolutely a part of the process, it is not the only thing happening here, and that there is service happening as well. And that these different roles all allow for union to unfold at very different periods of time, depending upon, what's aligned for your service and your counterpart service, and then this higher level service that the connection itself facilitates. Okay. Lastly, they wanted to say about that 2026 is a year where updates all around are being supplied as we cross over that 51% mark and into the new territory. You may find that you're extra tired, sleeping a lot as you work through integrating these updates. You may find that you need to self-sequester or cocoon while your system opens up to receive these updates so that it is a peaceful installation. Okay. So this is the channeled messages for twin flames and divine counterparts. I'm going to stop here. If you have questions about what I shared, let me know in the comments section below. I may host a Q&A or open a membership for Twin Flames so that we can kind of have ongoing dialogue over the course of the year. If so, it wouldn't be terribly expensive. It'd be something really cheap, but just to create more of a sacred container where we can talk, especially since I'm teaching more and there's less calendar availability. When calendar availability does open up, it will be in limited batches. And so, having these opportunities for Q&A might be something that really serves going forward. Okay. You heard something that resonates, something you're already living through or experiencing, or something that validates your own intuition, definitely let me know in the comments below. Hit that like button. If you're new here, welcome. It's great to have you as part of our star family. And yeah, it's going to be a really good year, this astrological year that's kicking off now at the time of publishing this. Got a great astrological year ahead. And I look forward to staying connected with you throughout. Also, last thing, if you're still listening, I mentioned that there are going to be activation dates. I'm going to share those activation dates with the private list. If you are not on the private list, please get on it. The link to do so is below this video. I want you to have access to those activation dates. I will be sharing them closer to the middle of April when more people have had the opportunity to watch this video and then had time to get on the list. But these dates will be key dates where you can expect very specific things to happen. As my guides were providing the channeled messages, they shared, okay, now go look at this date. You see how these planets and this is aligning. Understand that that period of time will be about this and share this with them. I want you to have that information. It just would have been too long to do here. So join the private list for activation dates. Okay. In part 2, I will share what there is to know for divine masculine and divine feminine. Some of the divine masculine messages I've already shared for those who are in a cisgender male body, but for those who are male dominant in frequency, you'll find the rest of this pertains to you as well. All right, let's get into it. Amazing. Okay, so if you are I'm not sharing the screen, let's try that again. There we go. Okay, so welcome to part 2 of the 2026 Twin Flame channeled messages, where I will be sharing information specific to divine masculine and divine feminine energetic fields. If you're new to the way I work, know that my guides have prompted me to encourage you to see both energies at work within yourself rather than one or the other. Union within generates union without as the platform. But they also have shared that during different seasons of the connection, you may find that you are in a divine masculine or divine feminine dominant energy. Some of that can be for leadership purposes. You've got certain frequency you need to hold for, let's say, your children. Could be you need to step into that divine masculine energy for them. Maybe at work, the only way to get things done is to operate in dominantly divine feminine energy. Trust your process, trust your connection, trust your frequency. But when it comes to your connection on the whole, look for the balance within yourself. Every counterpart pair has their own unique blend of divine masculine and divine feminine. Okay, so I just need to say that for those who are new, the majority of the messages for divine counterparts are joint messages in 2026, which is why that segment was so long. The joint messages are because we are coming into a union window that is focused on union with a partnership. And as I mentioned in that part of the twin flame channeled messages, we have a collapse of duality. And so what applies to one will also apply to the other for both counterparts. And so they really emphasized that I share that with you so that you can really start to look at your connection through the lens of union and harmony and unity consciousness, regardless of how it looks in the third dimension. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into this. I'm going to start with the divine feminine energy. I mentioned this in the Libra full moon update for this year, which was published right around the time this video was published, is that 2026 is going to be a year of a lot of structural work in the third dimension, in the divine feminine energetic fields. Things pertaining to work, purpose, mission, safety, boundaries, building a solid foundation. All of these things are going to show themselves as demanding priority this year. Third dimensional activation, also including finances, making sure that your physical safety and financial security are taken care of. Some of this will be about coming into thriving. Your life may demand it and really say, hey, gotta sell this house, time to move or relocate. Others of you will just feel that internal nudge, like, I really need to get on with my purpose this year. It's time. Either way, that focus on the structure of your life is going to be heavy for divine feminine energies this year. And even if you incarnated in a male body, as I mentioned, you may find that this is 100% part of it. Now, for you as well in your divine feminine energy. In addition to this, that focus, the design of that focus is to really support the divine feminine energy in focusing on third dimensional sovereignty in the home, with money, with work, with physical boundaries. And specifically on boundaries, they wanted to break that down, especially as so many divine feminine energies are coming into integrating the new masculine templates available on the planet for themselves. They wanted to be very clear that the growth work and the growth edge for many, for some, is about learning how to just name the boundary, just be able to speak to it. What is the boundary? For others, this is the next step, which is now holding and enforcing the boundary. Okay. The work will be both when it comes to boundaries. And this is going to help change your frequency when it comes to your connection. One of the growth edges for divine feminine energies as we move into the sovereignty templates for love and release the duality templates for love, which come with unequal power dynamics. That's part of the last chapter. This new chapter has equal power dynamics. This sovereignty work that's unfolding in divine feminine energies is meant to assist the divine feminine to move out of the frequency of looking for a parent in their counterpart and instead be able to look for a partner with the counterpart. This sovereignty work is meant to help mature and create safety for inner child, the inner child, and especially where there's a wounded inner child concerning male authority figures. And we'll get to that in a minute. But ultimately, this sovereignty work is meant to help you release the inadvertent ask for your counterpart to be a parent to you, because you're no longer expressing from the age of a childhood wound and then wanting them to come in and reparent you. This is where you become the father you didn't have. This is where you reparent yourself. This is a year of significant personal reparenting for the divine feminine dominant partner, especially where reparenting a father role needs to happen. This year, for many who are divine feminine dominant in particular, will be a work of clearing father wounds and the desire for the masculine dominant partner in the connection to play both parent and partner. Okay. This isn't to say, like, look, I know some of you are like, but wait, my counterpart and I have this, provider thing. This is what we're doing. That's our soul contract. I'm not poo-pooing that, not at all. Neither are my guides. Where that is the agreement between you and your counterpart, you guys decided on that. That's the way your connection works, where they financially provide for you. What they're saying in terms of the growth edge for sovereignty in that is that there is a focus on recognizing the equal partnership in that. that elder care for aging parents, child care for young children, um, home care for a thriving life for both of you. That is still labor. Labor needs to be compensated, emotionally, physically met, and valued, as both partners are showing up as providers of resources within the connection. Okay. And so understanding your role in that, even that it's not, how can I put this? Tell me how to say it, guides. That providing meals, providing childcare, providing elder care, providing psychological safe spaces for the family to exist is still providership. And your job this year in those sorts of setups is to self-advocate, make sure that your partner is aware that this is a partnership here, that we're both providing equal labor in the connection, right? And that equal labor, because we're both providing equal labor, we also need to equally appreciate each other's labor, right? And really step out of the old template of, you know, I don't provide anything. I am an adult child in this connection while the counterpart provides everything. And, they are the father in this connection. There's a complete clearing of that old timeline unfolding this year for divine feminine energies. So I wanted to make sure I clarified the structure of that concerning those who have relationships, connections where one person is the breadwinner. Okay. Breadwinner relationships are still a thing, but even reframing it as one person is the breadwinner, no, you're both equally providing stuff to the connection. And 2026 is the year where those conversations, that advocacy, that recognition is the work of the divine feminine energy to bring online in those types of connections so that you're both standing in sovereignty. You see each other as equals. You value what each other provides. Okay. All right. But for those who don't have that, work structure, home boundaries, creating a safety net for yourself in the third dimension. That is the Divine Feminine's 2026 work. Okay. Let's see. Both sides of that, right? Whether, you're working solo, you're working in partnership, whether the partnership is one where there's two very different types of roles, two people providing very different types of things, it doesn't matter. All of it for the divine feminine template, for anyone specifically that has abuse wounds of a sacral chakra nature, let's just put it like that, who had fathers or male authority figures, teachers, uncles, etc., who took advantage of your erotic innocence and the early development of your sacred sensuality as you express your aliveness in your body in your youth, where you have that experience in the past. Part of the process of returning to safety with the sacral chakra for you in 2026 is going to be cultivating this third dimensional sovereignty, the reparenting of self, becoming one's own father, being the provider and protector you didn't get. This is going to be a key piece of how the divine feminine energy resets magnetics in her connection for union. And this has been a critical missing piece for many in terms of coming into union. is that there was a wounded inner child that had no balance, no sovereignty, not fully developed sovereignty in the sacral chakra. This year is the year where you start to cultivate that sovereignty, the safety, the protection, to either start to explore and express this side of who you are. Alternatively, where that part of you has been overexpressed, overexplored, dominant to the exclusion of the development of other parts of your heart, mind, and spirit. 2026 is a year where coming into balance regarding that old wounding, this is the year where that happens. And to some degree, just living in society today, we all have that wounding, just being exposed to what we're exposed to, on television, what our children are exposed to, the atmosphere. We all need a bit of that work this year. Okay. In 2026, you'll be able to find a safe way to bring this part of you online or restore balance. And that's going to be a key piece of restoring your creative capacity as birthright as well. And again, this applies no matter what kind of body you incarnated into, in terms of gender. There are many who incarnated cisgender men who also experienced male authority figures taking advantage of their developing sensuality as children or their erotic innocence as children. The divine feminine component within you will be working on healing that this year. Okay. Structurally, what that's going to do, a lot of this structural work, work, mission, purpose, safety, security in the third dimension, we tend to identify, and this is part of the old template that's dying out, we identified this as exclusively the masculine's domain. What's happening here in this new era with new light, new templates for love, is we're rewriting the templates for masculinity so that they hold greater integration of masculinity and femininity. And in order for that to happen, this work being done by anyone who really is holding divine feminine energy, this work being done by you is a big piece of vibrationally, energetically, collective, subconsciously, what needs to happen in order for masculine dominant energies, as they come back into this focus, they need to find the breadcrumb trail the feminine energy leaves behind when she's working structure. That's actually going to help them when they return to structure and focus on security, safety, boundaries, all of that, to do it in a way that is more holistic, more harmonized with the earth, more harmonized with fellow human beings, less duality and subjugation, consciousness wrapped up in it. So there's so much divine purpose in this, is what they wanted me to share with you. So it's bigger than just, you dealing with your own home, you dealing with your own job, your own mission, your own purpose. It's part of a much bigger program where masculine and feminine energies are coming into union concerning roles and the way who does what in connection and how we all move forward from here. Much more balanced. Okay. So there's that piece. Now I want to speak to what's unfolding for divine masculine energies. And I already spoke to some of this earlier. But first, they wanted to again ground me in context. They said there is an implosion unfolding on the planet of what you all are talking about as the quote unquote manosphere. The idea, they don't really say toxic masculinity, they say old templates for masculinity. They're talking about just templates of subjugation, colonization, improper use of nature, like taking without replenishing, uh, you know, really consuming without um, managing resource, taking more than what's needed and not leaving enough for the planet or for the animals or for others, right? That sort of template for masculinity is imploding. They wanted to make sure that I told you it is at a crisis point in the energy for male identifying humans on the planet as a whole, twin flames aside. That implosion, that crisis point, is what's causing acceleration in the movement to new divine masculine templates on the planet right now. Because what they're showing me, they showed me a picture of male consciousness being caught between two sides. On the one side is all of the energy on the planet that caused harm to the planet, to children, to women, and themselves. And then on the other side is this demand to heal, this demand to grow, this demand to change the template. And that's anchored specifically part of what's forcing this change and how this is. It's really sweet. They're like, the biology is helping. The reproductive urge is what's causing a lot of men to go, you know what, if I really do want to reproduce, I might need to change some of my ways. Um, and the way they showed that to me was a blossoming from the sacral chakra to the heart space. Um, the as the duality templates fell in 2025, the blockage, and they don't really talk about blockage so much, but they were showing me that there was a getting stuck in the solar plexus chakra in between. And that looping and getting stuck in the solar plexus chakra is now complete because these new templates for masculinity are now available for uh, male dominant energies to plug into. Okay. They said the conditions for heart coherence are finally here en masse for divine masculine energies to plug into. A lot of this is the function of the work the divine feminine has done in holding the frequency of love for as long as she did, as well as the exposure to where the old templates of masculinity ultimately end, that it doesn't end well. And so there's many who are going, oh, I don't want to go in that direction. I got to do something different, which is fabulous. This really began last year in divine masculine energetic fields, the same way the divine feminine in 2026 is working on healing a lot of father wound issues. Last year, divine masculine worked on healing a lot of mother wound issues. That work continues into 2026 for divine masculine energies. Again, where there's just improper use of life force by a mothering energy, abandonment wounds, control wounds, even wounds of a reproductive nature, parentifying wounds in the masculine energy where, the mother made the son a husband instead of allowing the son to be a son, right? All of these sorts of things have been in the process of healing in the divine masculine energetic space, lots of growth as the divine masculine works a process of rewriting for divine feminines, right? Like this is at divine feminine energies will return to the work of holding emotional tempo for the planet, holding emotionally creative space. The divine masculine has been working in that space since last year, rewriting and healing wound energy and signaling in the collective subconscious, hey, some of the ways that, women have behaved has also participated in the wounding that many male identified people on the planet have experienced. And so, this healing work that the divine masculine has been doing last year, this year, again, is leaving that breadcrumb trail for divine feminine energies to pick up new templates, new information about how to partner and parent in ways that are more honoring and enriching to those who are male identified on the planet. So, really, it's a beautiful thing to witness how each counterpart energy has stepped into the opposites energetic field and said, okay, I see. You need me to work some stuff over here so that you know how to do it when you come back over here. No problem. That's exactly what I'm going to do. And so 2026, 2025, 2027 are the years where this merge almost of divine masculine and divine feminine with each other's template is taking place. And that's going to ultimately blossom this brand new template for what it looks like to be an integrated divine masculine and an integrated divine feminine, which ultimately becomes like just a divine being. My guides were saying like the concept of masculine and feminine is going to continue to fall. Polarity will still be there, but this, again, the separation consciousness around it is going to begin to fall away. So, just checking my notes. So 2026 in divine masculine dominant energies is going to be a year where we see energy resurrect into sovereignty for even more who have incarnated into masculine energies. That'll be in the latter half of the year, but especially into 2027. We're going to see new creative life force, new sovereignty, new expression of self coming through divine masculine energetic fields. Okay. And ultimately, for both masculine and feminine, this work is going to set the stage for third dimensional union. Okay. This work on both sides speaks to a preparation for a third dimensional partnership because there is a merge unfolding between third and fifth dimension. What you saw as so different in the third dimension from the fifth dimension, that's collapsing. What you see in the fifth dimension is now what you're going to be seeing in the third dimension. The separation between the two is now going to begin to fall away. Okay. Um, Lots of softening in the heart space for divine masculine energies this year. Lots of clarity about how one desires to be loved and how one likes to express love. A lot of releasing of shame concerning the expression of love, where you in your divine masculine energy got made fun of either by the culture or by bullies or by friends or even by a feminine energy in the way you express your love, where that has created wounding or withholding, like, oh, I I guess I shouldn't express love that way. 2026 is going to be a year that allows you to restore your organic template for love and expression of love. Okay. Um, Lots of healing in 2026. Um, Lots of restoring wholeness, coming back home to wholeness in the divine masculine energetic field, specifically emotionally, where the emotions have been really split off from life, where there's been a lot of compartmentalization. Those walls break down in the divine masculine energy fields this year. And that inner union with self again sets the pathway that releases isolation, it releases loneliness, and sets the pathway for union and connection with the other. Okay. This is going to set the stage for emotional groundedness and a synchronization between the emotional, the mental, and the physical planes of existence. And divine masculine energetic fields is opening the divine masculine energy fields to greater coherence. Okay. 2026 is a year where total alignment begins to show itself. All right. And that is what I have for divine masculine and feminine. As I mentioned, the majority of the messages apply to both as we release these sort of separation constructs of masculine and feminine. There's a huge merge and integration of both energies for all beings this year. So if you heard something that resonates there, definitely hit that like button and let me know in the comments section if you have any questions. Like I said, I might do a Q&A if there are enough questions. I might even open a membership. It's something my guidance team and I were talking about to provide greater support now that I'm doing less readings. When I do open readings, know that they will be offered to the Star Club community and the private list first. And again, now that we have come out of the union with self gateways to union, all relationship readings will now be ongoingly available when the booking calendar is open. Okay. I think that's it. I know this was long, but to anyone who got to this point, I absolutely love you. And if you tell me your favorite color in the comments, that'll be our secret code or whatever color pops to your mind as you come to the end of this video. I love you guys. It's an honor to be able to do this with you and a privilege. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.